Okay. Reboots. I wanted to talk to you about reboots, mainly because of your wrong opinions on the Ghostbusters movie.
Actually, no, yeah.
Obviously, it is a reboot, you know, it is a reboot. And I think I mentioned it on my Ghostbusters 2 video, that my main problem with that, and it was so easily alleviated, or it would have been, is that it could have been set in the same universe, and that would have appeased everybody. No one would have had a divided opinion on that.
It wouldn't have appeased the people who were not keen on them being women.
Oh, those people are
But let's not antagonise them.
because that's not the point. And no, antagonise them. You guys are f***ing idiots if you think that the biggest problem with that film is the vagina. If that is your opinion, you're an idiot. I'm sorry, but you know that is my opinion, and I'm allowed to have it, just like you're allowed to have yours. But just know
I value my life and continued well-being, so I'm not going to antagonise those people.
He thinks that as well.
I hate women. I'm with you guys. Ruin everything. Even at this in our films. Ghostbusters is mine. It's not yours. With your breasts and your opinions.
Anyway, yeah. In general, I believe I know you well enough to know that you have some possibly strong, possibly controversial, possibly just generally entertaining views on reboots. So where do we start here?
Yeah, the reboots, it's a horrible one. I mean, right, if you're talking about the Ghostbusters one, the frustrating, yeah, well, it's all tied in, isn't it? Because there's different kinds of reboots. There's soft reboots. Ghostbusters, the frustrating thing with Ghostbusters, that new film, there's a couple of things that bug me about it. One, I will say, I sat down and I watched it, and I laughed at must be 99% of those jokes. For some reason, I found it all amusing. I didn't think, oh man, I hated that first scene because I just didn't like it personally.
Yeah.
You know when he's doing that haunted house tour sort of thing.
Yeah.
It goes on for ages.
Yeah.
It's sort of everything that's how modern films do stuff, mirrored very starkly in the opening scene of the first Ghostbusters, which was how when stuff was done properly in that regard.
Yeah.
But I think this is the problem. It's like I wasn't expecting a remake of Ghostbusters to take in everything about the original Ghostbusters. It's the same style of humour, the same style of characters, because I've seen that. So the fact that it was completely different, and it just happened to have ghosts in it, and the Ghostbusters dynamic. It's not like it's a mythical, you know, underpinning mythos, or I don't regard it in the same way that I would regard, like, say, a Star Wars thing or a Batman thing,
right?
Of like going against the grain of it. It's a different kind of film. People doing Ghostbusters, and I enjoyed it. The frustrating thing for me was how, it's a reboot, but you got cameos from all the original cast that don't, like, why have them then?
I touched on that, and I really didn't appreciate it.
Did that, coming in, if you don't know who they are, does it lessen your enjoyment of the film? Probably not.
No. They are all included in largely pointless scenes.
Yeah, exactly.
Apart from the end, where Ernie Hudson comes in, he just plays a character that is alluded to already. Bill Murray comes in as a guy that could be quite happily cut out of the movie, no worse off. You know, they could have easily cut the horrendous cameo by Dan Aykroyd. That was just like he was just there so he could go, "I ain't afraid no ghost." He was literally only there to say those words. It was like they didn't need that, and they didn't need Bill Murray, but Ernie Hudson came in as Patty's uncle, and he was like, "What the hell have you done to my hearse?" You know, he's like,
that could have been anyone, and that joke would have worked.
Yeah, exactly. But they got Ernie Hudson to do it.
Yeah.
So it was good, and that's the only cameo that was any good in the whole film, in my opinion. I thought, and it was the funniest part of the film for me as well, because Ernie Hudson was just riffing on what she'd done to his hearse. You know, he's like, "Oh, what have we done?"
That's the simplest thing of where, like, the character's done something. The character's brought that hearse in because her dad is X, Y, and Z. At the end, her dad rocks up and goes, "What have you done about hearse, man?" It could have been anyone. That's funny. That's just a funny story thing that's self-contained.
Exactly.
So they didn't gain anything really by the cameos.
But it's also a callback to something that's already happened.
Yeah.
And it's also like it's within the story, sort of. And like again, you could cut that out and it wouldn't make anything any worse off. But at least that had a point. Whereas there was no point in the
cut that out. It's a good gag. Yeah, no, agreed.
And
so
and Bill Murray wasn't that funny. I'm sorry. There are people out there that hold Bill Murray in such high standing that even more powerfully than the people complaining about gender.
Sure.
So we've got to apologise to those people.
He's like raw popular. Some people are mad for Bill Murray.
Yeah, I agree. I'm well into Bill myself. and I love nearly. I think everything that I've seen him in, I've really enjoyed. There's only one film that I didn't enjoy, and I think it was The Royal Tenenbaums, and that was only because I didn't really enjoy that film in general. But I really loved the other one that he was in by the same director, the Life Aquatic.
Oh right,
with Steve Zissou.
I know what those clever films.
He was really funny in that.
To my superheroes, comics properties.
But that was a really good one. You should watch that because it is genuinely really funny, and Willem Dafoe's in it hilariously, and that's all I'm going to say about that. He was not funny in the new Ghostbusters. He was just not funny in it. He just literally just went in and went, "I'm Bill Murray, impress me."
Not funny.
And it wasn't funny.
See, here's my thing with Ghostbusters in particular, and maybe franchises in general.
Okay.
Is this didn't really play. This isn't a franchise. They're trying to start off a new franchise film, which now probably won't happen because it wasn't successful enough.
Apparently it made enough money, but there was
good.
such divided opinion on it that they're probably not going to do it because it is
don't
Sony.
need the heat. Fair enough. But whatever the case in that, it's like I don't care about the cameos. I'd rather they weren't there. If they are, fair enough. I don't care. All I care about in a film that I sit down and watch that is allegedly not carrying on from anything else is like, am I rooting for the right people? Is there a main character here that I want to succeed? Is there a villain that I don't like who I want to see fail? Are these people reacting in a way that makes sense to the things that are thrown up in front of them by the story? Yeah. Is it logical? Am I excited? Do I want them to succeed in this final battle? Am I surprised by something they do at the end that will make it come round? Does it make sense? And I got all of that. I was excited when she goes into that portal at the end and then a mate comes back and pulls her out and goes, "I'm not leaving you again." That's the stuff I remember. I'm not asked about Bill Murray not being funny. So I was excited, and I was sort of had that nice bit at the end where there's, how does it end? It's like put "Thank you Ghostbusters" on the building. I forget. I think something it did, and it sort of plays into how she was unconfident or whatever, and it just sort of lined up and made sense. It was fun. I was moved. I was pleasantly surprised, and it exists fine on its own. People will say like that film isn't funny, and it's like if you didn't find it funny, that's fair enough. Yeah. Humour is not wildly subjective, as is most of this stuff. But so that was why I was totally alright with that film. As to the whole it being a franchise or a reboot, it's just annoying. I think like it's the time capsule argument, the posterity thing. Like if you look in the future, looking back at this time, I watch a Ghostbusters film. It's like, well, there's Ghostbusters 2, and then there's Ghostbusters again. Oh, this is the 2016 one. So how many times can you just have the same film just rebooted? And it's a complex old thing, this reboots and franchise and stuff, and it's a sad state of affairs where you have to keep making it again and again. So that's the side of things that there's more to say on that, but I get it. And do you know, one of the saving graces of that movie, one actor that I found really funny all the way through was whoever it was. I forget her name, and I really wish I remembered it because I actually genuinely am a fan of hers. And her name is escaping me now. We're here where it's going to be documented, and I look like an idiot. But anyway, it's the one that played the Egon sort of part, the tech-savvy one. Yeah. With the glasses, and she's from Saturday Night Live, and she's just really hilarious all the time in anything she does. Yeah. And she was really funny in this. But she was really quirky and weird. The only thing I didn't like was when she pretended to be one of the head mannequin things. I thought that was... Sorry. Steady. I thought that was stupid. Yeah. but she was all over the shop saying stuff that didn't really make sense. Yeah. And yet, it's all against all the stuff I was just saying about what I demand. Because it was just, I don't know, I just let it go. I just found it amusing. Like, it was just weird. Like, she was like, as if she was like, I don't think this is necessarily going to do that well. I'm just going to do weird shit and see what happens. Yeah. You know? Like, it was just that's how the entire, like, the script writers should have been, you know, the director, everybody should have been like, let's just do it and see what happens, sort of thing. But like, again, with as far as script writing, there really didn't seem to be one, because there was no like everything that was said by those women, I guarantee was made up on the fly. I guarantee that they just made every single line in that film up. There was an A and there was a B. It was like, that, we need to get it that way, and you need to mention these things, these little plot points, but that's it. Off you go. And like that, why not do that? You know, that's as long as B led to C, but B led to C, C led to D, it all like lined up and made sense. Yeah, I mean, people do that all the time. I challenge anyone to find me a Seth Rogen film that doesn't have about 6 to 9 scenes that are exactly that, all the way through. Like, when it works, it really works. I mean, the box office will tell you with Seth. Well, there's bits like that as well. Yeah, with Robert Downey's really good at that sort of thing apparently, and Ryan Reynolds in Deadpool.
a lot of that was like that, because him and TJ Miller are very comedy orientated people, and they're very spontaneous and funny, so it works. These women are spontaneous and funny and comedy orientated people, but when every single day you've got to get up, come to work and find something new to do every single day for 8 months or however long it took to shoot that film, it's not all going to work, and some of it's going to be stale. And especially if you've made it up one day and then the director tells you to go back to that thing that you did the day before, and then he picks that take. You know, I think some of that happened, and that's what pulled me out of it. I couldn't suspend my disbelief too much because I can see the making of it in my head as I'm watching it. That's maybe just my brain. I'm probably alone on that one. But like,
apparently not. Apparently I'm alone in liking that film because it was wicked, and everyone else is like, it's.
Well, like I say, I did, but I didn't, because I couldn't suspend my disbelief because I'm seeing them go, okay. You know, the director, Mr. Feig, who like reminds me so much of Joel Schumacher in the way he speaks, and like there's an amazing. I'm probably going to cut this out, but have you seen the clip of George Clooney apologising for Batman and Robin?
No, I don't think I have.
He was on the Graham Norton show, and he said it was really difficult because I was in the thick rubber bat suit. I couldn't hear anything. All I could hear over a megaphone was his voice. Was Joel Schumacher's voice going, okay, remember George, your parents are dead, okay, and action. And then he'd go, I'm Batman, and he'd go, and cut, and that's all I remember from it, he said. I thought that's fucking brilliant, because I can see the exact same thing happening with the Ghostbusters thing. Okay girls, remember that thing you did yesterday, action. Yeah, like that guy's not attractive. Yes he is. And cut. You know, it's like come on.
Yeah, okay.
You know, like, there's bits like
Sure.
those are the bits that are stuck in my head because I can't suspend my disbelief when I know the thinking behind a particular thing. The opposite is also true, that I can completely suspend my disbelief because I watch something and it takes you completely out of it and it sucks you right in, and then I watch like the making ofs and documentaries and stuff and go like, oh, that's how they did it, and it doesn't hamper me rewatching the film. It was like the opposite of that though. It was like I could see how it was getting, you know, it was being played and how it was being put together, and it was all like clinical, even though it was supposed to be like free-form comedy. It was done very uniformly, if that's a word. Or, you know, I just couldn't get past it.
Fair enough. I loved it. But that's kind of film on its own.
It is.
So it's talking about reboots and franchises.
The Spider-Man ones are
I just say
something to touch on, but
yeah.
what were you going to say?
No, I think like the reboot thing is, it's like reboots that don't need rebooting.
Yeah.
I think it's so important for looking back to everything line up and be taken as one thing. If you're going to be constantly making these films, especially so near to each other, in you know, in terms of years,
do you know
just have it sit together and
yeah, I get it, but Marvel have done what they have done with their movies, and the landscape is now forever changed because of it.
Yeah,
which
they
is
all
weird.
line up, don't they? They like Marvel would never reboot within their.
They sort of do, but they don't.
When have they come in on it?
Let me think. They rebooted the Incredible Hulk within the Avengers. They completely redid him. They recast him for one.
Yeah,
and that first film with Edward Norton, which isn't the first one.
That's canon.
Yeah, it's canon, but they recast him and
No, I think recasting it didn't reboot him. They
rebooted the character within a. They did. They honestly did.
They rebooted from Eric Bana, but the Edward Norton Hulk is the same. That's the same Hulk, but played by new chap.
Yeah, but they rebooted the whole character in general.
Robert Downey Jr. shows up at the end of it.
Yeah, I know, but they played it as if that film had never happened.
No, they didn't.
They did. They tried to.
Mark Ruffalo rocks up and he goes, "Last time I was in Harlem, I broke it." Like in that film I was in. They've got footage from it in Iron Man.
But here's the thing. Here's the problem with that. The tiny little problem with that is that if that was the case, then it would have been Robert Downey that went and got him.
What do you mean when I got him?
Scarlett Johansson. In the Avengers. Scarlett Johansson was the one charged with going and getting Dr. Banner and bringing him to the ship. Because if they were counting what had happened before, that scene had already taken place. They didn't need that.
No. I can't accept any of this. that film is canon completely.
Well, it is
Incredible
canon.
Hulk.
It's
Well, it's not a
considered
reboot,
canon,
though. It's
but
not a
they
reboot.
softly rebooted the character when they recasted it because the film didn't do as well as they hoped.
No.
Yes.
They got clips from that film being played in Iron Man on the computers. They got like Thunderbolt Ross comes back as the same guy who's playing him. He's back in whatever it was, Civil War and that. That's part of canon. The guy who played Thunderbolt Ross in The Incredible Hulk alongside Edward Norton comes back in Civil War. He's there. He's General Ross. It all gets referred to. It's all part of the thing.
Ross. Yeah.
Edward.
He does.
No, it's John Hurt. No, John.
No.
Something. William Hurt.
William Hurt. Yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
I know. Yeah, and yeah, fair enough. But again, they softly rebooted the character, and as a result of that, Edward Norton Hulk, they are very, very, very reluctant to do a standalone Hulk movie.
Yeah, well, it's one of the things where, like, with all superheroes, you're willing them to change into their duds and do stuff, but with Hulk, you want him to do that, but he doesn't want to do that, so it's weird.
Yeah, but it sort of isn't, though.
Well, you say that, but why haven't you made one then?
Because they're too afraid of losing money at this point. They've invested so much into it. They've got these people on multiple film contracts. They've got to pay them and all the rest of it. Likenesses.
That'll be funny, right? If they can make
shit, you know.
But the way they are now, they can do it. I mean, they've made it's riskier, surely, to make an Ant-Man film. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but when you cast someone like Paul Rudd, you're fine.
Ant-Man was wicked. But anyway,
and
the point is...
it was brilliant. Paul Rudd's brilliant, and they had Michael Douglas in it. So, making Ant-Man with that dude you don't know, fair enough, but making Ant-Man with Paul Rudd and Michael Douglas, you're fine. You know, making Batman with that dude you don't know would be risky, but making Batman with Batfleck or Christian Bale or people you do know, you're fine. And, you know, shoving Liam Neeson, everything's gold, and, you know, have a very particular set of skills.
So I think this is illustrating. Sure. We're sort of illustrating how almost pointless it is to apply any kind of logic to this.
Oh no! Has it run out of battery? Holy it's run out of battery!
Oh dude!
Oh my god!
It's another audio section then.
And we're on.
Okay, where were we before the camera messed up?
Oh my god!
Oh god! Calls. Right.
We were on Hulk, and my understanding was that it was softly rebooted in The Avengers. To add to what we were already saying, that is just what I read, heard, or saw in like one or more behind the scenes type deals.
Okay. We'll park that one anyway because we went back and forth on that hard. We'll just accept that you're wrong. So next on the list then. We're still on this reboot. I feel like I think we just stopped to the point where I started saying it's so hard to apply any sort of logic to this because there's so many the soft reboots. There's these things where it's actually rebooted but for no real reason. A couple of things that really bug me most is like the unnecessary reboot, which I might get onto, but it's ones where in a rebooted film they're making gains, they're utilising knowledge that the audience can only have from watching other stuff that should now be completely forgotten and out of canon.
They're seeing through lead thing in Batman vs Superman's a good example.
Yeah.
You only know that if you've watched the old films or read the comic books, and that shouldn't be the case.
It's like the Predator being drawn to conflict in somewhere cold. You know, ideally you wouldn't want it in there.
No.
It's not integral to
that annoys me because first film, jungle. Second film, Los Angeles in a future 97, heat and conflict. Said Gary Busey.
Yeah.
And Gary Busey is the law.
But let us never forget Gary Busey.
No. And here is where I put in the oh my.
Oh my.
But then all it needs is a throwaway line, throwaway line to just solve it. I think more egregious a sin is where, there's two instances I can think of where effectively the same thing happened. One is in Star Trek, where in that second one, Into Darkness.
Yeah.
And now this isn't quite fair because that's not a reboot, is it? So that's why I can kind of get on board with that Star Trek film.
The Star Trek films are a reboot. With that very opening scene in the first film. I'd argue
that is the very definition of a soft reboot, that's what I'd say.
Good point, yeah. Because in that very first scene, what should have happened and what ultimately did happen in the old 60s TV series through the films and all the rest of the continuity got split off into a totally different relative timeline, whatever, when that dude, Eric Bana, came back and killed Kirk's dad.
Yeah.
When that happened, everything changed, and now they've rebooted it in a way that they can now do what they like with those old characters, but still be within some sort of continuity.
Yeah, it still sits
That's
together.
already, yeah,
you can watch all that in first. You can watch every bit of Star Trek that's ever been made, and you can come to that, and it'll still feed in, and it'll make sense.
Yeah.
But that whole film is based on that premise about making that work, the future, the past, reconciling it, all these things that happen.
Yeah.
That's effort. But the thing that bugged me, I think, about that second film was where Benedict Cumberbatch goes, "My name is Khan, and we're supposed to lose our shit." Now, given what I just said, that's actually fair enough because they are making it in the thing. But I think it's just so risky in a film to make massive centerpiece of the film. Who's this guy? Who is this guy? Oh, he's not who we think he is. He's Khan. Most people going to see that film have probably not even seen the originals, maybe.
Yeah.
And he's supposed to lose your shit when he says Khan. It's like, it's alright,
and
it's a bit of a cheat.
Very, very, you can tell in just the way it's framed.
Yeah, it's like supposed to be a
you're
big
supposed
thing.
to oh, Khan.
Khan. Who's that?
Who's Khan?
Khan. Oh, yeah. And then some guy goes behind him, "Oh, yes, it's Khan Noonien Singh. He's one of the race of genetically engineered..." You shouldn't have,
Shut
that level.
nerd,
Yeah, nerd. Care what you think. Just want to enjoy myself. Just ruin it. But again, that's all in the same continuity, so maybe that's fair enough. The worst one is the James Bond one. Like, you're not terribly into James Bond.
I was when I was a kid, and I've seen one or two of the Daniel Craig ones, and I seemed to remember watching Skyfall under the impression that they were very much hinting towards the fact that every time that an actor has changed in the James Bond films,
I know where this is going. I hate this.
Is that it is a different person that takes on the James Bond persona, and I thought that was like clever but
I don't think I got hinted at all.
Nobody's watching James Bond going, but why doesn't Sean Connery look like Timothy Dalton?
I hate the theory that James Bond is a code name. It does my head in. I hate it. I hate it.
Never read the books then because it says code name James Bond.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Please don't say that, because I have read them all and it doesn't say that. His code sign is 007. His name is James Bond.
I know.
Please don't.
I like riling you up. I'm sorry,
well, think carefully, because this is a small room and it's quite hot. This is stuff that matters, yeah? The James Bond thing, right? The problem is, right, George Lazenby's one Bond film, he gets married in that, and then in For Your Eyes Only, which is a few years down the line, Roger Moore lays flowers at his wife's grave. So if there's the codename thing, then he just feels an actual kinship to the people who've had the James Bond codename when he goes and puts flowers on. License to Kill, fantastic film.
Yeah.
And that's a good example of like just the character being shaken up without need for a reboot. And the fact that you've got all that continuity to draw from, loose though it is, you know, you're saying this guy who looks to be in his mid-40s was fighting in the Cold War or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just loosely a nudge, nudge, wink, wink. It is the same guy. It's a different guy playing him. He's just got this history of being a spy from the olden days, and he's always almost out of his time.
Right.
And the establishment don't like his methods. That's just kind of always the place he is. But all this stuff has happened to him, and you don't need to make mention of it if you don't want it. But when you can, it gives you moments like this. Remember that wedding scene? Felix Leiter's getting married at the start of License to Kill. His wife-to-be, I think, gives James Bond a present or just says something to him. She takes off her garter and she says, "Oh, James, you know what they say? The next one who catches this is the next one who..." And then he goes, no thanks. But she goes, "Oh, James," and she makes him catch it. And he's polite about it. He sort of smiles, but you can see that it's killing him. He gets in his car. And Della goes, "Did I say something wrong?" And Felix Leiter, who's the same Felix Leiter who played Felix Leiter in Live and Let Die with Roger Moore, by the way, says to Della, he was married once. It was a long time ago. See James Bond drive off. Yeah. And it's a beautiful moment. So the codename thing doesn't, I'm sure you will receive now.
As an outsider looking in, those are the bits you forget.
And yet, that is a character building moment.
Well, yeah, exactly. And you always forget those character building moments in James Bond. It's unique as a franchise in that way, because you just completely forget those bits, and the only bits you do remember are the sort of the one-liners, the women, and the car chases and crashes and shit like that.
To an extent, perhaps.
If you're not watching them the way you are because you're a massive fan, just watching it as like, oh, there's a James Bond movie on the TV, I'm watching it, sort of thing. I've flicked onto it, there it is, I'm watching it, kind of thing. Even as a kid I was like that. I'd watch it when it was on. All these instances of little character development moments in all the films that I have seen before are completely blanked in my memory.
Well, they're not necessarily memorable moments.
Well, no, but it's not even that. I remember stupid shit about everything. I just reminded you of the ad you placed in a shop window when we were teenagers, because I remember stupid shit.
Changed the course of my life, that did.
It's a full mine also. It was a very poignant moment, but it was like, no, it was horrible. But anyway, I don't know why I don't remember that moment in License to Kill, for instance. That's one of the ones I've seen the most. I think as a kid, Timothy Dalton was probably my favourite Bond, because I think it was just around the time that I was starting to watch those films, he was the new Bond.
Yeah.
In the late 80s, wasn't it? And he only did 2, didn't he? Or did he do 3 in the end? It was only 2. But those are the 2 that I have seen the most. And then the Pierce Brosnan Gold and I came out, and all I really remember from that is Moby. Well, he did the GoldenEye theme.
Did he?
Yeah, he did the single of it. Yeah,
I don't think that's true.
He didn't do like the
Tina Turner.
Tina Turner did the GoldenEye song. Moby did the ding 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 ding.
Oh right, yeah. The beautiful thing about James Bond is you've got all that continuity, but anytime it gets stale and crap, like with Moonraker or just the Roger Moore era, they didn't need to reboot it when Timothy Dalton came around. All you need to do is to make a film with a different feel. Yeah. A grittier feel. Yeah. And you don't just need to reference the past if you don't want to.
That's it.
But leave it there just so you don't detonate it.
Yeah, for the James Bond films, every film that exists is of its time.
Exactly. It's a beautiful thing about it.
The GoldenEye movies are very 90s movies. Like the Pierce Brosnan ones are very 90s.
Era,
and the end of Roger Moore's cycle was right at the beginning of the 80s, wasn't it? And it was like, was it very the end of the 70s? Yeah,
83 is
there you go.
Age something like, is he 59 or something?
Something like that, yeah. And it was, I think the reason...
Liver-spotted and lascivious.
I think the reason that didn't work quite as well as the rest of them is because they were making a 70s James Bond at the beginning of the 80s.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And then they went with Timothy Dalton and made an 80s movie. But every film was of its day. Whereas the way that they try to do films now and in the last 20 years or so, since we got into the noughties, they've tried to make this thing that everybody hounds after. So what's the word? That everybody really tries to get, and that's that timeless thing. And they just end up dating it.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Kinda.
They tried to make a timeless Superman with Superman Returns, but sort of dated it in doing that, if you know what I mean, because it was supposed to be within the continuity of the original films.
Yeah.
But they very much dated it in that early 2000s era of movie making, the way people were trying to make movies at that time, like the original Spider-Man movie, the Sam Raimi original. Dates itself by trying not to date itself.
This is like doing like some meta dating thing that I don't fully understand.
Kirk Hammett of Metallica said it best when they were talking about they didn't want him to do guitar solos on the Saint Anger album.
Yeah.
If you're not going to solo on a Metallica record, then you were dating that record in that particular time where they decided not to do those things.
Yep.
So by trying to make it timeless, and they can't possibly take it any further, it's just, there it is, and that's it.
Okay.
That is my problem with like more recent movie making in general. People like Tarantino do it just by default of the way they make movies. Like Reservoir Dogs could have been made in the 50s, probably wouldn't have been as violent, but it could have been made in the 50s, or it could have been made yesterday, and it would have probably turned out the same if it was made in the same way, because it is timeless. And he didn't set out to make a timeless movie, he just went out and made a movie. He put an unusual soundtrack on it, filmed it in a odd way, in like his own way, used a particular set of like stock to film it on. He used like lighting techniques, blah blah blah, all these things that he just wanted to do because he wanted to do it, not because he was trying to make a timeless like movie, you know. And he did the same with Pulp Fiction. That's considered a timeless classic or a masterpiece or whatever people are calling it. And because those sorts of films didn't cost much but they made a lot more, big studios tried to emulate that in completely the wrong way, I noticed, after the 2000s. There's what is referred to by a certain person I watch on YouTube all the time as the dark age of movies, which is from like 97 till 2004. And it's like the dark age apparently, and I sort of agree with him, because that's when we got Batman and Robin. That's when we got
some films he didn't like, presumably.
Batman and Robin is undeniably one of the worst movies.
Yeah, sure, but like the probably good ones made as well.
We got the first Alien vs Predator movie at that time. We got
the greatest.
We got all those like we got like a whole mishmash of shit films in that time, and they were all striving for this thing that was like this elusive thing, the classic, the timeless movie, and they all failed above the board.
Batman Robin was trying to be a timeless movie.
It was.
What is that? I don't even know what that means.
Because it was trying to emulate that 60s thing. Even down to the music, even like everything. He was trying to make a timeless film. In much the same way that the animated series was timeless, because it would use architecture that looked old, but it was futuristic. And it was like the cars were like old style, big bonneted, wheels separate on the side, kind of old cars, but they'd have like a TV or a radio in the dashboard. He was going for that, and he failed. I feel like there was
classic. I don't know what you mean by this. It's interesting. I think
because a timeless classic is something like The Dark Knight or Pulp Fiction or something like that. These films.
How does someone change their approach when they're making a new film to try and do it the wrong way?
They're trying to do it what they think is the right way at the time and end up dating it by doing it.
Okay.
Instead of just trying to come at something from a sort of a fresher and natural perspective. Do you know what I mean? And like, instead of coming at it from just a new point of view, if it was, say, a reboot, for instance, just trying to do it from a different perspective or a new point of view, they try and do it like this is going to be the definitive one.
I don't think anyone goes in a film without saying, right, this isn't going to be we're just going to make a shitbag non-definitive one. Then you want to make a film, you want this to make the definitive article of what you're doing.
Well, yeah, like a filmmaker will definitely try and put a stamp on what they're doing, but the ones that work are the ones where they say, I'm just going to do my version of it.
Oh, I fully agree, yeah.
And the ones that don't are when they're going, I'm going to make a timeless classic. I'm going to make everything like it should be now.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Like, edging towards understanding what you're babbling about.
I don't know if I'm explaining myself correctly. It's in there and it makes sense, but when it comes out of my mouth, it doesn't.
Well, I think we're edging towards... Yeah, just this idea of the franchise film, where you basically get people parachuted into making films on existing properties that aren't just a wacky new take on it, they're just the next link in the chain.
Yeah.
Is it that sort of thing?
That sort of thing, yes. And like, instead of just bringing a new perspective to it and starting a new story or a new whatever they want to do, if they're rebooting or whatever, they're trying not just to put their own stamp on it, but they're sort of... Why can't I explain myself?
They're too beholden to the past?
Yeah, in a way. When we talked about Batman and Robin just then, Joel Schumacher wasn't trying to make a new Batman or a new version of Batman. He was trying to make the original Batman TV series in movie form with the guy out of ER.
I think you're almost describing too much effort and thought to Joel Schumacher's motivations there. I think he literally just like, I'll make a Batman film.
You're right.
I don't think you're going to be like... I think someone like Kevin Smith might make an homage to...
something.
Yeah, I think like, that's just Joel Schumacher going...
Action!
Neon's my thing.
I like lights.
Don't want to do him down, but...
I like popcorn.
Senior point.
Oh, God.
Just to...
No, you're right. Why am I thinking about...
Same with Aliens vs Predator. I think everyone just thought, I will just make a pastiche of what has been on, because I think that you don't get the big visions anymore, like Tim Burton's Batman could only be made by Tim Burton.
Yeah, exactly.
And Chris Nolan, same for Chris Nolan's.
Yeah.
Joel Schumacher's Batman, it's not like it couldn't only be made by Joel Schumacher, but it's his thing. But it's not even that now. I think the example is Colin Trevorrow's Jurassic World is not the story he's been dying to tell. Because there's no story there.
Yeah.
It's just another link in the chain that he's just been hired to make because as a director they won't rock the boat. And how he's got episode 9 for Star Wars, I'll never know. But whereas, I don't know.
Wait a minute, because Rogue One wasn't part of the trilogy. Rogue One was a Star Wars movie, so isn't it part 2 of the trilogy?
No, it's not.
That's coming.
No, it's not an episode. It's a spin-off, and they can have multiple spin-offs.
Right.
All origin stories, because everyone loves them.
I know that there was the last one, because I'm not counting Rogue One because it is a Star Wars story. It doesn't even have the rolling title. It's canon, and I'm not saying it's not canon, but it wasn't supposed to be part of this new trilogy, as far as I understand.
No, it's not part of the trilogy.
But so have I missed a movie then?
No, you got Force Awakens, and then Rogue One has come out after that. Basically, what's going to happen until the end of time, until you and I die. Literally, you get like a a saga film one year, and the next film you get a spin-off.
Yeah,
year
yeah.
after that, saga.
Yeah,
spin-off,
yeah.
saga.
Well, the saga, it wasn't, there were only supposed to be 3 sagas, and if that's right, then what you're saying is, like, the trilogy is only the second part that's coming.
Yeah, it's the second part of the new trilogy. It's on its way this year.
Okay, because you said third part, and my mind...
Yeah, Trevor Rowe gets the third part of the trilogy.
Oh, right,
down the
okay.
line.
Okay, right, I'm with you.
Rian Johnson's got the second part. But the Star Wars spin-off, the Rogue One, in theory, that should be a place where a young, hip filmmaker can actually say something cool about war or whatever.
Yeah.
But it got twisted into something weird. But I'm not going there.
Right.
But just to cycle very briefly back to the James Bond thing, I think I tied in by saying this, is that the Casino Royale, that was directed by a guy who did some of the other, I think directed GoldenEye. Now, that was good, but then Skyfall, and then Quantum of Solace, neither it was not much of anything. Skyfall was something that really has the director's mark on it, and it almost like this quintessential modern Bond. Whether it was good or not, it's open to debate, but at least that was...
I enjoyed it.
You've got your angle now. The problem is with the James Bond thing is, Die Another Day, terrible. So then everyone's like, oh, James Bond, it's terrible, we have to reboot. Suddenly, like, we had to reboot it.
Right.
And they were saying they had to reboot it and whatnot, because they show Daniel Craig the start of Casino Royale. Well, it's the first Bond novel written.
Yeah.
They show him getting his 00 license, basically. So if you don't buy into that, it's just a code name thing, which I think we've already disproved quite handily.
Yeah. Fair enough.
We're rebooting now. We're rebooting.
Yeah. Or it's just you just see it as a prequel. It happened before those movies that came before.
Right. Okay. Yeah. If you're going to do that,
that's how I would see it.
If that's okay,
you know, without trying to do this codename nonsense. You know, I would just see it as like...
I said in the 60s.
It happens before the Connery films.
You've got to say in the 60s there, surely.
Well, you would have thought, wouldn't you?
But that's not what
cars to... You've got to have your car sponsorship.
It's high tech. Bond is like cutting edge of what I said. Whatever is the time.
Yeah.
That is the cutting edge.
Well, they are
of
their time.
Exactly. So they should be. So right, rebooting it for right. Okay. So what's the point of a reboot? The point of your reboot is to have or to pay some attention to the origin. You'd think because you've got to get rid of everything else. They started from scratch. They better have something good to say. It's like it opens with him getting his 00 license by killing some dude, but there's no point during the film where like he's crap at fighting. You don't find out what he was like before he was a 00 agent. He eventually arrives on a scene fully formed. It just so happens it's his first couple of missions.
Right.
And he quits, by the way, near the end. The thing that bugs you initially is, so it's a reboot, but then they bring Judi Dench in, who's been in the last 4 films, playing the same character.
She come in like the GoldenEye.
Yeah, exactly. She came in there. Yeah. She's got all this back play of like, she's bantering with Brosnan constantly throughout those 4 films. She's a joy to watch. So they rebooted it, but they bring her along, and he's supposed to then still care about them. But she's acting like it's the first time she's had these conversations with him. That gains nothing.
One moment, weren't you a man before?
What's that?
Because that character was played by a man in every other film until GoldenEye. Wasn't it? And then
it was led to some great things.
Wait a minute, weren't you a guy?
Yeah. I think you're a sexist, misogynist dinosaur, Bond. That's great.
That's nice. The next one's Connery, so we're right in the place.
Oh god, yeah. So there's that, and then it's these like a reboot that's trading on M having been in the last couple of films, and Judi Dench, the goodwill built up. They're stealing that bit, and then they go on to have the Aston Martin that's got the number plates from. Well, it's the same Aston Martin that was in Goldfinger.
Yeah.
So it can't be. So it's a reboot, but they bring that car back because that car will get a pop from the audience and go, "Oh, it's the car. That's cheating. That's cheating. It's not on. It's not fair. You can't do that." And I remember them whinging about, "Oh yeah, we can't use the James Bond theme in this film because we don't feel like we've earned it." It's like, you didn't then, did you? Oh, why are you denying me a moment where James Bond will do something cool and you just play da da da? That's all I want from it. Oh, I can't have that because you're trying to be like clever about it. What if you're that clever? Why is Judi Dench in this film?
Well, it's the same thing as not being allowed to say Superman in the Man of Steel movie. You're not allowed to say it because it's not cool, mate.
And then the final thing, right? My final word on James Bond, and I get my soapbox on this, but it does my head in. It's that like in this latest one, this Spectre, which by the way is gone. Once it's happened, you've seen it. There's nothing memorable in it. It's gone. It's nothingness.
I even forgot that it had come out.
Exactly. It's a forgotten Bond film. It's the Khan scenario. You've got a shadowy figure in the shadows. Shadowy.
I don't know who he is.
Oh, then they start like they changed their mind. It was like Quantum was this shadowy organisation, but now it's like, oh well, we've got to get Spectre in, so Quantum is Spectre. And then you're just waiting for this guy to reveal that he's Blofeld. And then he does. There's a torture scene, and then it's like this big thing, just like Khan. He goes, "My name is Ernst Stavro Blofeld," and we're supposed to lose our shit. But this is now,
Yeah.
in this film, it's the first we've heard of Blofeld, and he's done nothing. We get told, oh, he's shadowy, he's in control of everything. We don't see any of it for any time. When he says, I'm Blofeld, we're supposed to lose our shit like it's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's not at all. But then, hilariously, it wasn't even that big in the original Bond films. Blofeld's last appearance in the Bond films, right, the actual canon ones,
yeah,
before all got rebooted, the start of Your Eyes Only.
Right.
I'm pretty sure. And he, it's a throwaway credit sequence. He's bald, he's got the cat on his lap, and he's in a wheelchair in an industrial estate. He tricks James Bond from his wife's grave into getting into a helicopter.
Right.
And then Blofeld, from his chair, assumes control of this helicopter.
Right.
And it's all played for laughs. It's like Blofeld's a comic shit character, last we saw of him. And I was supposed to get scared because Christoph Waltz says I'm Blofeld. I get annoyed. He picks, James Bond regains control of the helicopter, he picks up Blofeld on the edge of it. Blofeld starts banging on the side of it. I remember this, when he goes, Mr. Bond, please no, Mr. Bond.
Oh, yeah,
and he's going, I'll buy you a delicatessen in stainless steel. What's all that about? And then Roger Moore dumps him down a cliff, and he goes, Mr. Bond! He goes down like that. And then Roger Moore goes, and then rides off. He might have had a smile, I can't remember. And that's like this amazing villain. He probably.
Like just an eyebrow, and then that was it.
And it's like, just, you want to give me a villain to be scared of? Just make a proper one.
Make a new one.
Make a new one.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That is the problem with these reboots, is just, in James Bond's case in particular, every film is supposed to be a continuation, whether you like the idea of Casino Royale being after or before or whatever, that's beside the point. It's supposed to be the next one. And there's supposed to be a new villain. And if they're going to go back to an old villain, it's the same dude that played the old villain. Like you said, that guy, it was the same actor that got dropped down the ravine, wasn't it?
Yeah, so
exactly. So
it's just have some...
it takes so much of it. Recording.
Oh, okay.
It literally just